Hello there, this is Alexander from Sinesquares.net, and today we're going to talk about the brand new Teenage Engineering OPXY. It feels like everything Teenage Engineering created in the past 15 years all came down to this instrument. It looks like a blacked out OP1. It has like a hybrid workflow of the OP1 and the OPZ, step components like the OPZ, punch-in effects like the EP series and the pocket operators, and a lot of brand new concepts that make the OPXY the best Teenage Engineering product ever made. Also, in this video, we're not going to talk about the price of the OPXY for two reasons. First, Teenage Engineering sent me this product, so I didn't pay for it, although they didn't ask me to make this video or write an article for it, and they have no idea what I'm about to say for it. And second, like I mentioned in the previous video I did for the OP1 field, it is what it is. Some people can afford it, some people cannot afford it. It would be incredible if this instrument was like 500 euros so that way more people can buy it, but it's not. So only Teenage Engineering knows if the 2,300 euro price tag is right and it's working for them, and we cannot do anything about it. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what is the OPXY. Just like the OP1, the OPXY is a DAW in a box, and this time it actually feels like a real DAW in a hardware form. So now the OP1 is more of a modern tape recorder, and this is more of a DAW hardware device. So in terms of aesthetics, the OPXY looks identical to the OP1. They have some slight differences in the keys, but overall it's like the same form factor. When I saw some initial photos of it, I wasn't really excited, but yeah, it looks way better when you have it in your hands. At first glance, the OPXY seems like an overcomplicated device, but it's way more easier than it looks. So today I'm going to break down the OPXY into its core features, its core functionalities, to help you demystify what this thing is and what you can do with it. Above everything, the OPXY is a synthesizer and a sampler. It has a drum sampler that can now store one-shot samples per key. It has a synth sampler that now also allows you to do multi-sampled instruments and 8 synth engines. This allows you to create numerous sounds, your own sampled instruments, and your own drum racks. All the synth engines are completely new and can cover a wide palette of sounds and almost every sound you will need. Every synth engine has the first page where you can control 4 parameters for each engine. Just like on the OP1 field. And then you have your envelope page. That has an additional envelope for the filter, and that means you have a filter per track, which is amazing and is something that I wished that the OP1 had. The filter page has 4 different filters that you can use, and you can switch using actually pressing the black knob here. You can control the cutoff, the resonance, you have the amount of the envelope, and the key tracking. And of course, the 4th page that has your LFO. Not having the effects slot that you have on the OP1 field and replacing that with a filter, I think that's a big improvement and makes sound design much easier. But in general, I think that the engines and the way you sound design with them, it's much better here on the OPXY compared to the OP1 field, because you do have the filter and you also have 2 send effects that we're going to talk about later. For each project you have 8 tracks, just like the OP1, that store your project's presets, and that can be anything from drum samplers, synth engines, or synth samplers. To play those sounds, you can use the keyboard and play them live, or use the players. Players are the equivalent of sequencers that we had on the OP1, and they can be an arpeggiator. You can hold, increase the octaves, the arpeggiator style, and of course the time. A hold, which is just a hold. I think that the knobs do nothing. Or the maestro, which is a new one, and you essentially create a chord and you can then play this chord chromatically using the keyboard. You can choose your notes by holding shift. Up to 8 notes. And now, yeah, you also have something like a roll. The maestro is kind of fun, but I don't see myself using it that much. But the most exciting way to play sounds is by using the sequencer. The sequencer on the OPXY is a fully featured sequencer with a lot of tricks up its sleeve. To record something on the sequencer, you can step record notes onto it or just play them live, quantized or not. This is up to you. And it has 64 steps that you can extend by using the track scale feature that allows you to extend your sequence. And you can also set your sequence's length by hand so you can create polyrhythmic patterns. So the sequencer, if you want to just step record, you can just hold your step and add a note. You have up to 4 bars. resulting in the 64 steps that we talked about. And here you have the track scale that allows you to extend your sequence. I prefer to play my sequences and record them straight in the sequencer. So let's demonstrate that. We have our metronome. We can extend our sequence and just arm it and play. So now we have a sequence playing, but we can make it a lot more interesting by adding another thing that is called step components. Step components are essentially modulators for your MIDI notes and can be added to any step that holds a note to add some variation to your sequences. This feature is quite similar to the parameter locking and conditional triggering that you can find on some Electron devices. So we have our notes recorded in the sequence. And now to make things more interesting, we can use the step components. So you can see where do you have notes played, when do you have recorded notes. And if you hold Shift, the light dims and shows you where you don't have a step component. I don't know if you can see it, but the lights dim. It's pretty subtle, and sometimes you have to look really closely to understand where you have a step component and when you don't have. But yeah, let's add here portamento. You choose your step component, and by the way, all the natural keys have a different step component, and using 1 to 0 you can adjust how much of it or what it does. So here you're adjusting the portamento percentage. Let's leave it to 30%. And now we have a step component here. Let's add another one here. Let's go random, 2 steps, 1 octave. Let's go here and add the bend. And lastly, let's add a conditional triggering that you can find here. So it says skip every second trig. I can have it every third, every fourth. Let's go with 1. So let's hear what we have now. You see that with the step components you can subtly add some variation to your sequences. It's a really cool way to do that, and really handy the way they implemented it. Under your 8 tracks, you also have 8 additional auxiliary tracks. These tracks have the brain, punching effects, the tape, send effects, and some other routing options. To better understand what they're doing, think of it like this. You have your 8 sound generators, and then you have 8 additional tracks that create effects and also routing options in and out of the OPXY. But the most important thing is that you can record these auxiliary tracks on the sequencer. So to access your auxiliary tracks, you just have to press this button right here. You can see that the lights turn red, and you have your 8 auxiliary tracks. Number 1 is the brain that we're going to talk about later. Number 2 is the punching effects. Number 3 is MIDI. 4 is CV. 5 is the external audio. 6 is the tape. 7 and 8 have your 2 send effects. Right now we have a reverb and a delay, but you can just use Shift and the send effect, and you can choose chorus delay, distortion, lo-fi, phaser, and a reverb. So now let's demonstrate the brain, the punching effects, and the tape, which are the most exciting ones and the things that you're probably going to use most of the time. The brain is a really interesting and exciting concept that allows you to transpose your tracks while always staying in key. If you have something already recorded, the brain will analyze and figure out the key of your song, but you can always set it manually if you already know it. Once this is done, you can now use the keyboard and transpose any of the tracks you want to a different key, and then just repeat that and create variations of the same sequence. I really love this feature. It allows you to create like a single 1-bar pattern and then transpose it and create like a progression, or you can take an already recorded track and just transpose it and create different vibes and different feelings using the same track. And once you have something that you like, you can always record it on the sequencer and let it play for you. So let's quickly go through the brain. As you can see, it's detecting your scale right here, your key. It says F sharp major, which is correct, but you can also do that manually and you can choose any key you want. And on the second page, you can see all your tracks and which of them have the brain enabled or not. Right now I'm going to use it for track number 4 and it is on. Now I can control number 3, I can turn it off, and this is my number 4, and by pressing this knob you can access the other tracks. Let's leave it just for channel 4. So now you can immediately audition what's going to happen when you use the brain. So this is my original sequence, and it is here. So let's record that. The auxiliary tracks can be recorded and have their own length. So I can just set it to 4 bars and say, I want my original to be in the first one. Go to bar number 2 and add, let's say, this one, okay. Let's go to bar number 3 and add this one. And bar number 4 to this one. So now it's going to play back and do those changes. So you can see how with only the brain and one bar sequence you can create like a full progression with different pitches and different notes each bar. It's really inspiring to work with brain because it allows you to do experiments and transpositions that you wouldn't probably do yourself. So it's a really fun way to make music. Another amazing feature of the OPXY is the punching effects. Here you have 12 effects for your percussion tracks and another 12 effects for your melodic tracks. So you can just press record those punching effects on your sequence and completely transform your tracks. Also, something that I didn't realize at first is that you can also use the punching effects for each track separately. That can be really, really handy. So now we have a sequence playing. Let's add some bass. And some drums. So now that we have our sequence, let's go to track number 2 in the auxiliary tracks, which is punching effects. As you can see all these punching effects only affect the drums. And these, the melodic parts. And you can of course record that. You can see how the punching effects can do so much to your sound, can completely transform it into something new. It's a really fun way to play with your sequences. And since we're here, let's quickly demonstrate the tape. The tape is a buffer that's recording your sequence, and you can play back chops of it, and you can control the speed with these two knobs, the steps, and the mix. It gets much more fun when you do that as your track is playing. For me, the heart, soul, and magic of the OPXY lies in its arrangement features. I think that with the OPXY, Teenage Engineering finally figured out how to actually create a portable DAW in a hardware device. So by pressing the arrange button, you can see your 8 tracks, and you can also see where you have notes. Here we have number 1, our drums, our bass, and here we have our keys on 8 and 4, and we haven't used 5, 6, 7, and number 2. Also really important, we can also press that again, and now we can see the auxiliary tracks, and you can see that we have information for the brain, the punching effects, and the tape. If I don't want to use these auxiliary tracks, or if I want to record something new, I can just add a new for the brain, a new pattern for the punching effects, and for the tape. So now we're going to play it back, and you're not going to hear the effects we just played. So this is our original track without the punching effects and the tape. We can bring it back. Let's bring back the tape and the brain. All the patterns that we recorded are combined into a scene, and you can see the number 1 here. We're at scene number 1. To add a new scene, I can just press Shift and the number I want, and I have now scene number 2. On scene number 2, we have the exact same things, and here we have, let's say, the punching effects selected. So if I play in scene number 1 and then scene number 2, we have completely different sounds because the punching effects are enabled here. We're using the pattern that we recorded with the punching effects. Of course, the same thing goes for the instruments. I can add in scene number 2 another instrument. Let's say this. So now we have our 2 scenes, scene number 1 and scene number But this is not all. All these scenes can be sequenced, can be arranged into a song using song mode that you can access by pressing Shift and the Arrange Mode button, and you enter the song mode. Here you just press the number of the scene you want to add and how many times you want to add it, and you can just create your arrangement and your overall song. So to arrange the scenes into our song, we can just hold Shift and press the Arrange button here, and here we can see song number 1. By the way, you can have up to 10 songs per project. So now I can just add my scenes. I want to go from scene number 1 to scene number 2 and play it back. And the last part of our signal chain is the mixer. In this page, you can control your levels, you can control your sound effects, your panning. You also have an EQ, a saturator, and at the end you have your overall volumes and also an one knob compressor. So lastly, we have the mixer, which is right here. Here you can see that beautiful grayscale that shows you your tracks. You can choose any track and add your sound effects. Let's add a lot of delay and reverb. You can control the panning and of course the level. On the second page we have our EQ. We have your lows, your mids, and your highs. Third page is your saturator. You can add gain and mix it. This saturator sounds really good. I really enjoy using it because it adds some crunchiness to everything. And lastly, you have your mix. You have two separate mixes for the percussion tracks and the melodic tracks. You have your overall master and a one knob compressor. I hope that this breakdown helps you understand the workflow and the core features of the OPXY. So overall you have your sound generators, your engines, you have the sequencer that has the MIDI data and all the effects, the auxiliary tracks. Then you have your arrangement, and finally you have your mixer. So these things create like the overall DAW. I truly think that the OPXY is the most complete and easy way to create a full track on a hardware device. To me it feels like home working with the OPXY because I'm an Ableton Live user, and the overall workflow is really similar to Ableton Live's. I always start by creating a lot of patterns, then I use those patterns to create scenes, and finally I arrange these scenes into the arrangement mode in Ableton Live. And that is basically the exact same workflow for the OPXY. It might seem a lot, but it's honestly much easier when you have the device in your hands. It's really intuitive, it's really easy to understand where you're at, and once you get a hold of it, you can create full tracks in like a matter of days. I truly think that Teenage Engineering did an excellent job with the OPXY. On a single device, they managed to solve all the problems and address all the complaints they had for any of their previous devices. And yeah, the OPXY still has a few bugs and a few things that need to be, refined. But overall, it's a really, really great device as it is. I've experienced a few bugs myself. A few times the device just froze and I had to turn it off and turn it on back again. But overall, I hadn't any problems creating songs and music with the OPXY so far. I believe that if you're a Teenage Engineering fan, this is the dream instrument we've been waiting for. A big question that arises is that how the OPXY compares to the OP1 field, and having both, I can tell you this, up to one point they're completely identical, to be honest. If you're using them to just play synthesizers, just play the sounds on it, you can use any of the devices and have the same results. The OP1 field has more creative effects and more sequencers, but the OPXY has the sequencer that is much more capable than the one on the OP1. But the fundamental difference is that the OPXY uses MIDI data and the OP1 field is just an audio recorder, and that is a huge difference when it comes to creating a song. I'm planning to do like a full comparison video between the OP1 field and the OPXY, but also talking about the benefit of having both, because I think that they complement each other really, really well. So to wrap things up, I think that the OPXY is an incredible release. Yeah, people are complaining about the price once again, but this time the features and the workflow don't leave much to be desired. I mean, this is a really, really fun device, really creative device, and allows you to do way more things than you could do on any other portable hardware unit. I'm still learning a few things here and there, but it's so intuitive to work with the OPXY, especially if you're coming from an OP1 field or you've worked with other Teenage Engineering devices in the past. It sounds incredible, it looks incredible, and the sequencer is really, really capable and really easy to use. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you found this video helpful. You can ask me anything you want about the XY in the comments. And I hope to see you on the next one. Love you.